The big event today is Theresa May's big speech. But after the standing ovation in a packed hall of 1,500 people at a fringe event yesterday for Boris Johnson, and that, by the way, was before he'd even said a word, the pressure is on the Prime Minister, not least because of last year's speech, when, if you'll recall, a protester handed her a P45. She had a tickly cough throughout, and letters on the back of the stage set behind her fell off. So the question is, can she, well, keep it all together today? And can she unite her party? By all accounts, she's going to offer an upbeat vision for the future, talking about how Britain's best days lie ahead, a future full of promise, and how we should seize this moment of opportunity. But will she be there long to continue seizing the moment? Well, let's talk to a man who was closely involved and a close watcher of Conservative Party affairs for many years. Lord Michael Heseltine, the former Conservative Party Deputy Prime Minister, joins us now. Good morning to you, Lord Heseltine. Good morning. What does the Prime Minister have to say today that will perhaps unite the party around, particularly not just her premiership, but also the Chequers deal that she wants to get with the European Union, and bring the party together, perhaps bring the country together, and move on? What does she have to say?
There is no way of doing what you've just asked. The country is divided from top to bottom. And you've only got to look at the newspapers today to realize that this is reflected in what's happening in Birmingham. It is a tragedy. It is called Brexit, and there's no upside. There's no use peddling phrases about our best days or anything like that. The fact of the matter is that we are stepping down from one of the cornerstones of British power, which is the European Union. And that will leave a vacuum and where we should have a voice. There is no escape from that. There is no economic benefits from it. It will prolong the frozen living standards we've had for 10 years, and it will diminish Britain's status in the world. There are no words that can hide the comments I hear wherever I go every day in this country.
Well, you say that there's no upside to Brexit. Well, one of the upsides, surely, is that it will restore faith in democracy, and that the British people were told all of the things you've just said. We were all told. We were told it repeatedly by not just yourself, but pretty much the entire establishment, by the government, the leaders of all the main parties, that this would be a terrible, terrible thing for our country. And 52% of the electorate chose to vote for Brexit. Now, whether you think they're right or wrong, and you and I are very much on different sides of that argument, Lord Heseltine, the point is that the vote was given to the people had their say. Wouldn't it be right? The major upside of Brexit is actually that to deliver on a democratic vote.
Well, neither you nor I nor the Prime Minister, who of course was in favour of remaining, know what leaving Europe meant. It was just a phrase, and it was based upon the frustrations of economic stagnation for 10 years and immigration. And now, here we are, years later, no deal, no consensus as to what a deal could be. And so how can anybody say the people voted for that? The only way to resolve this issue, if you come to some arrangement, is to put it back to the people. And of course, what you then find is that every year a serious number of elderly people die who are Brexiteers, and their place is taken by a group of younger people who are pro-European. And so I don't believe there is a majority anymore. So if we have all this talk of democracy, let's put it to work.
Well, you said that the polling shows actually there's been almost no change whatsoever, certainly well within the margin of error in terms of the of how many people want to leave and how many want to remain. And you talk about people, we've heard this argument again and again, although to be fair, and with all due respect, Lord Heseltine, I normally hear it from people who are much younger than both you and myself, that, well, all the old people are Brexiteers and they're dying, and young people are more likely to vote remain. But the reality is young people also become middle-aged and become old, and as people grow older, as we know, often their political views change. The reality is that even if, I don't accept the premise that you said that we didn't know what we were voting for. I voted Leave. I knew exactly what I was voting for. I wanted to have a government that was in charge of my country that I could help vote out. And that was, for me, it was all about accountability, all about the democratic sovereignty. The reality is, though, even if you had a second referendum, and thank you for not calling it the people's vote, I appreciate that, but even if we had another referendum, what would that solve? Because you could always, if you lost that again, you could just say, well, the people still didn't know what they were voting for.
Well, I think you analysed the problem. A second referendum wouldn't resolve the issue. I agree with that. But what it would show is that there's no unity. There is a divided nation.
But why is that a problem? I mean, the reason why there was a referendum, the reason why David Cameron had to promise that in his election manifesto, which he didn't want to deliver on, but was forced to deliver on, was because the country is divided. And that's why we had this binary vote on this crucial issue about the future of our country.
Yes, but you see, when you now look at the Chequers Agreement or any version of it, you realise that the simplicity of leaving Europe is not an option. Or if it was to be an option, it would be a disastrous one. The Prime Minister keeps telling us how bad no deal would be. So the fact of the matter is that people were deceived. They were bribed with promises about the National Health Service. They were told immigration would be under control. Just take immigration. For the present situation broadly is that twice the number of people as immigrants coming into this country come from outside Europe. Why haven't we done anything about that?
Well, we had big announcements from the Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, about what they do plan to do. And, of course, as you know,
But answer the question. Why? The Home Secretary was Theresa May.
It's your lot that's been in charge for the last few many years. Don't blame me. I'm just a journalist.
No, I'm not blaming you. I'm merely making the point that the Prime Minister herself was Home Secretary for 6 years. And she has complete control of the legal constraints on immigration for non-European.
But isn't the answer to your question?
You can't escape from that.
No, isn't the answer to your question, Lord Heseltine, that actually the point is that what the British people have been saying for years and years, their concerns about immigration, their concerns about the EU, concerns about many issues, haven't been tackled because actually an awful lot of people in what we loosely call the establishment actually don't agree with them. And there's a view that, well, you know what, voters don't really know what's good for them. We the clever people, we the metropolitan elite, we'll decide and we'll make better decisions than they will. There is quite a lot of that attitude in British politics, isn't there?
Well, you can assert that. I certainly don't subscribe to that view. I think the British people were conned. I think they were deceived. I think that Farage peddles a delusion about Britain's position in the world, which is unacceptable. And if you couple that with 10 years of frozen living standards, people want change. I understand that. But do they know what change it is? Well, as I said a few minutes ago, we've been dealing with this issue of Brexit now for considerable time, and no government, no minister, no party has come up with a deal which is doable.
And you include Theresa May in that, with her Chequers proposal?
Well, the Chequers is dead. I mean, I said that when I glanced at it. First of all, the Tory party in the Commons won't vote for it, the Labour Party won't vote for it, and the Europeans won't have it. So what on earth is the point of going on talking about something which is not going to work?
So for you, in terms of if you were in charge of what the Prime Minister was saying today, you would suggest to her she's chucking Chequers, which is what would please an awful lot of the party, but she would be calling a second referendum, going back to the country.
No, she's not going to do that.
I know she's not, but is that what you would like her to do?
No, what I would like her to do is to seize the moment that now is open, where immigration is in a quite different political context in Europe than it was when David Cameron tried to negotiate. And I believe that there is a possibility of a European deal on immigration which we could support. And if that were to happen, then the whole Brexit climate changes. And if we could stop Brexit, with after a new European deal on immigration, that would restore our economy to growth. We've slipped from being the fastest growing economy in Europe to one of the slowest. If you want to change that back, you've got to kill Brexit. But I can see that the opportunity to kill Brexit is linked to the immigration issue. And that, you can see it in Spain, in Sweden, in Germany, and other parts of the European Union, as well as here. Indeed, you can see it in Trump's America. Trump's America is a rerun of the Brexit campaign in this country.
So if there were a second referendum, and everyone seems to be ruling it out at this conference, if there were, and there was yet again a 52%, 48%, so 52 for leave, 48 for remain, would you then respect the outcome of that referendum, or would you want to go for a, I don't know, best of 5 or a best of 7?
I would myself accept that meant that the issue was closed for the immediate future.
But how long does the immediate future last for?
Well, I don't think you can be precise about that, but let me just say, I believe that just as every Conservative Prime Minister found in my life, Britain's self-interest in Europe is unavoidable and indeed desirable. I mean, do you know, one thing that's happened at this conference, and it's had quite a bit of coverage, is the foreign secretaries referred to the European Union as the Soviet Union. The effect of that on our European allies, who know that they, first of all, have preserved peace for an unprecedented a long time in Europe. Secondly, they got rid of the fascists in Spain and Portugal. They got rid of the colonels in Greece. And the thing that Europe has done is to create a union of 27 other countries, 28 with us, parliamentary democracies, which are governed by a complex arrangement which is dominated by the elected leaders of their country. It's quite interesting to watch the Prime Minister and her ministers. They weren't going back and forth to Brussels. They were going round the capitals of Europe because they know that that's where power actually lies, with the democratically elected leaders.
Can I ask you finally, sir, as a former Henley MP with a very famous blonde locks yourself over the years, Boris Johnson, similar attributes. He made his big speech to party conference yesterday. 1,500 people crowded into a fringe meeting to hear what he had to say. Did you watch the speech, and what did you make of what he had to say?
I listened to the speech in part. What did I have to say? Well, it's what I knew he would say. It is a leadership bid. It has dominated the media, as I said in an article I wrote in the Evening Standard on Monday. This conference has turned out to be a Boris fest, and you can't avoid it. The country is divided. I've made the point. Boris represents the division, and the Prime Minister's position is temporary. He wishes to fill it.
And do you think he ever will fill it?
I don't think that anyone can answer that question. But
would you like him to? Do you think he'd make a good Prime Minister?
No, his views are quite unacceptable to me over Europe. And I see no point in changing the singer unless you change the song. Boris is ambitious. I don't personally criticize that, but he's wrong on Europe. And I believe that his resignation was opportunistic. If he really believed that Chequers was so bad, he would have resigned the moment that it became public policy. He didn't.